When your job entails cleaning up other people's poop, you're bound to find yourself in some less than stellar situations down the line. In my book, it's inevitable. Over the years, I've lost count of all the weird encounters I've had with clients, and while most of them are innocent in nature, more awkward than anything else, some of them truly leave a bad taste in your mouth. Examples of the latter ranges from some slightly questionable stuff, like mopping up used needles, finding handguns strapped on furniture, uncovering small bags of white powder and pills, to more sinister implications, like bloodstains in the sink, tattered clothes that doesn't seem to quite belong, hearing hoarse whispers behind locked cellar doors. It's never quite enough for you to risk losing your job over, though. The clients demand complete secrecy. That's why they pay us through the roof. All that changed when I started working at Lizzie Batten's house, however. You see, for particularly demanding clients, there would never be more than a single cleaner assigned. This was to ensure that the client's demands were met to a satisfactory degree. These demands could be anything from at what time we would show up, to which specific rooms or areas we were meant to clean. But sometimes, there would be more bizarre demands, like what equipment they wanted us to use, or insisting that we would only walk around barefooted. One client even insisted that we enter the house blindfolded. You can only imagine the time that it took to properly clean his million-dollar estate. Yet none of these compared to Lizzie Batten. When I first got the assignment, I had to spend several days memorizing her many requests. I was the fourth cleaner that she had gone through in a month, and I didn't want to risk losing the contract by forgetting one of her strange rules. I tried asking my boss what had happened to the other three cleaners, but he just shrugged and said that they had quit. Not just the contract, they had left the company. I found that hard to believe, but the Batten contract just paid far too well for me to continue my inquiries. We never met Miss Batten, which in hindsight was yet another sign something was off with the whole deal. Usually the clients would either come to our office to detail the nature of the work, or we would meet up at their house and go through the do's and don'ts. In Batten's case, we only met briefly with her lawyer, a lanky figure who didn't go into details at all. He simply delivered a list of instructions and he went on his merry way. The instructions were plentiful and strange, most of them having to do with what we shouldn't do. We weren't allowed in any locked rooms, yet we were given keys to every room as far as I know. Under no circumstances should we enter the master bedroom, or the bathroom on the main floor, even if they were unlocked and wide open. If we ever heard unidentifiable sounds, regardless of where they were coming from or what they sounded like, we should immediately drop everything and get out of there post-haste. The cleaning itself had to happen between 9 p.m. and 11:59 p.m., and we should never be in the house after midnight. Now these rules might sound pretty ominous, bordering on sinister for outsiders, but believe me, I've seen weirder. Our clients were strange and they enjoyed being strange. They just didn't want other people to know that they were strange. Hence the need to sign multiple documents to ensure that we never talked about what we encountered. Lizzie Batten never had to sign anything. She obviously didn't care what people thought, which I have to admit I found slightly unnerving. The kind of people who hired us always had something to hide. My first couple shifts at the house went by without any noteworthy incidents. It was a fairly large property, but the majority of the rooms were more often than not locked, so the actual cleaning didn't take me more than a couple of hours. But for every new shift, after the initial 2 or 3, I would find a new door unlocked. This would keep happening until, finally, every room was made available to me, and I had to really step up my game to get everything done before midnight. The house itself was quite spacious, yet comfortable and nice, with warm, unpainted wooded panels in just about every room. Fine paintings adored the walls, and the many shelves were stacked with books and framed photos, some black and white and some in color. If I were to guess, I would say they covered a time span of about 60 years or so. What struck me as strange, though, was that the same woman appeared to be in all of them. Lizzie, I wagered, but she looked exactly the same, like she hadn't aged a day. The second thing I found strange was the lack of dust or dirt. Everything was spotless. Well, except for the flies. For some reason, there were flies everywhere, and their corpses littered the windowsills. I spent the first couple of shifts trying to ascertain where they were coming from, but I could never figure it out. They did seem to grow in numbers around the main hall though, but there were only 2 rooms that I hadn't ruled out: the master bedroom and the bathroom. After a couple of weeks, I had started hearing the sounds, usually around 10 to 11 p.m. Sometimes it would be really faint, other times quite loud. There would be creaking in wood, sometimes a low-pitched static buzz, or the sound of a door slowly opening. But the most unnerving would be the noises. I never stuck around long enough to identify where they came from, but they creeped me the hell out. Usually, they would be inaudible murmurs and whispers, but every once in a while, they would be loud enough to make out words. They didn't make any sense to me. Words like genticular, valetudinarian, or zerts. Nonsense, right? When these things happened, I would drop everything in my hands and I would bolt out of the door. To be quite honest, I can't tell you why. I know it was written quite explicitly in the contract, but somehow I think it went deeper than that. It was like I could feel that something wasn't right, that I would be in danger if I stuck around. I had been on the job for a little over 2 months when it finally happened. I guess it was inevitable. Nothing lasts forever. 2 months without ever breaking a single rule, and then I just went and broke them all in one night. I don't think that it could have been avoided, to be honest. It was always meant to be. It was a night like any other. I had almost finished all the rooms, having only the main hall left when I saw her. Lizzie Batten. She was standing in the doorway of the master bedroom, just staring at me silently. She had long flowing dark hair and smooth milky white skin. Her gaze glimmered on emerald green, and an eerie grin rested on her rosy lips. Startled by the sight, I stumbled back clumsily and I fell over a coat rack. Sprawling on the floor like a fish out of water, I heard a chilling laughter echo through the house. It was lighthearted, almost like a girlish giggle, but it still sent shivers down my spine. "I'm so glad you decided to join me tonight," Lizzie said. "You always leave before the fun." I managed to stagger to my feet, facing Lizzie as she edged closer to me. She wasn't naked, but it wasn't far from it. Her nightgown didn't do a very good job of obscuring her rather attractive physique, and I didn't even poorer job of hiding the fact that I was ogling her like a hormonal teenage boy. I stammered eloquently. I'm sorry, Miss Batten. I didn't mean to disturb you. Nonsense. She smiled warmly. I was hoping for some company. It's the first of the month after all. I was sort of clinging to the walls like a scared animal, while her elegant frame inched ever closer. She was beautiful, no doubt about it, but there was something about her, something primal and fierce, something wild and aggressive, something that reached into the very core of my limbic system and rang every alarm bell that there was. I realized then that I had to get the hell out of there, but just as I was about to make a run for it, she grabbed my arm. Will you take a bath with me? She asked gently. I prepared the most wonderful solution for us. She yanked my arm and started walking towards the bathroom. I was being pulled behind her like a dog on a leash, and at this point, I don't think that I had a choice. She had me under her spell. She opened the door and motioned for me to enter first. The room was pitch black and I could hardly see an inch before me. Straight ahead, she said calmly. Just take off your clothes and I'll guide you. I tried to resist the urge with every fiber in my being. I swear I really did. But I couldn't help myself. Soon enough, I stood there naked, bewildered, lost in Lizzie's trance. She grabbed my hand again and I could hear her getting into the bath. But it didn't sound right. I don't know quite how to explain it, but the noise was too thick somehow. It was then that I noticed it. How could I have ignored it? The smell. My God, the smell. It was like a slaughterhouse in the summer. Like a mixture of rotten heat and coagulating blood. She yanked my hand again, this time hard enough for me to lose my footing. And I dove headfirst into the awaiting unknown. I'm not sure what was worse, Lizzie's insane laughter, or the initial shock of slowly realizing what exactly filled up that bath. I panicked, I don't mind admitting it, and I waved my arms and feet feverishly, somehow convinced that it would help me. It feels wonderful, doesn't it? She giggled maniacally. It's heaven for your skin. It takes years off you. I coughed and gagged, the horrid sensation completely encompassing my body. It was slippery, extremely slippery, and I struggled frantically to get out of the bath, but I kept getting pulled back in by Lizzie. You need to let them work it, she said. Let them nibble a bit. I felt the maggots crawling in the back of my throat. I guess I must have swallowed a handful as I fell in, and the taste was like death itself. I'm not sure how I can properly describe the feeling of a million worms crawling all over your body, but I can assure you that it wasn't pleasant. They were in every crevice, every little nook and cranny, and I could feel their tiny mandibles scratching away at my skin and squish it into hideous, nauseating pulps under the weight of my body. The sound of them slithering, crawling, twisting, squelching, still haunts my nightmares to this day. An hour or two, Lizzie laughed. That should do it. Suffice to say, I didn't stick around for an hour or two. Somehow, I was able to find my footing, and I kicked myself out of the bath, slipping and sliding my way out of the bathroom on the squished corpses of 100 maggots. I ran naked into the night, crying and begging and wailing, accompanied by the haunting, chilling, insane laughter of Lizzie Batten. The police found me in a ditch the next day. They couldn't get me to talk. I still don't talk. Now I just sit here, remembering every moment of that night. I hear Lizzie laughing. I smell the bathroom. I can picture the hideous, maggot-filled bath. I can feel the worms squirming all over my body. And I can taste death in the back of my mouth. And that's why I quit cleaning houses for a living.